So, am I seeing this correctly? That was it the History Channel?
History Channel.
Yeah. Did they revamp, or what's the word to use with Hangar One? Because it's now on again.
They enhanced it.
What does that mean in Hollywood terms?
Yeah. What it means is they got to reuse all of the footage and not pay us.
Oh, that's quite an enhancement.
Let me tell you about the History Channel.
Sure.
But we did the Hangar One TV show. We filmed it in 2013 and 14, and it aired in 2014 and 2015. And let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. How much you think I got paid for the 20 episodes I was in?
You guys did 20 episodes?
I was in 20. Yeah, wow. They did 20. I was in all 20. I had lines in 19. I had a cameo in one, on the glass board.
I would hope a novice not understanding Hollywood, I would think maybe $10,000 a show.
I got $40 a show. I got
Wait a second.
I got $800 to do 20 episodes over 2 years. It was incredible. I'm good friends with Bill Burns, UFO Hunters, right?
Yeah.
So when they contacted me to do it back in 2013, I called Bill Burns because I was running the UFO conferences since 2008. Mm-hmm. And I said, Bill, if you don't mind, what should I expect to get paid? And he goes, first season, $1,500 an episode. Second season, maybe $2,000 to $3,000 an episode. And the third season, you probably get, I think he said he was getting like $6,500 an episode.
Okay.
So if you do 10 episodes, you got $65,000. And what's interesting, Jeremy Ray, the kid with the guy with the red hair.
Yeah.
He had just lost his job. And he was saying, I got to find a job. I said, don't worry about it. I said, if we do a dozen episodes, you're going to get $80,000. You could just do this for a couple of years.
Yeah,
and he says, okay. So then we get the contract, and it's like, it was $300 for the first season, which was which was 8 episodes, and then $500 for the second season, which was 12 episodes. I think I caused Jeremy Ray to go on welfare.
Oh my gosh!
He actually has a good job now.
My gosh!
In
You
security.
gotta be kidding me. So television isn't what the average person thinks it is.
Well, it's funny. I complained to them, and the second in charge guy, he says to me, "You UFO guys are a dime a dozen. You don't want to do it? We'll get somebody else." But this was a MUFON show, so he wasn't going to get anybody else because I was the man as far as MUFON goes. But let me clarify, though.
Sure.
MUFON did get paid per episode.
Okay,
but I don't think it was a big number. Mm-hmm. It was less than what Bill Burns got per episode is what MUFON got. So that was the reasoning for us not getting paid that much, and I was okay with that. I was writing my books, and I said, this, and that was one of their sales pitch. Oh, you'll get all kinds of speaking engagements, and you'll sell tons of books. I didn't sell any more books from Hangar One than I did from my original books on end time prophecy and the Mayan calendar.
Right.
As a matter of fact, my first book was my biggest seller.
Get out. Really?
Yeah, in 2007.
Wow. So they tried to sell you on the ancillary benefits of being on the show.
It's all about money. It's all about. So let's get back to your original question. So so what they did though is they took Hangar One, and then all of a sudden on Facebook, I'm getting friended by people in Brazil. And then people in India, all over the world, they're releasing it overseas in different languages. We didn't get anything for that.
Wow.
So they did that for 2 years. And as a matter of fact, in the contract, it had said you get $500 in season 2 per day of filming.
Okay.
First day, I spent 13 hours in that chair so they can get every penny out of me. Before I signed the contract, they crossed out per day. And and we all complained to headquarters, MUFON, and they said, "Wow, this was a mistake." It's unbelievable. Then the second day, I sat there for 9 hours. I'm telling you, it was the hardest thing I ever did. 13 hours in that chair. So what they did now was 4 years later, because the last season ended in 2015.
Right.
They basically took new CGI and file footage and fixed it up, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
I mean,
it looked phenomenal.
2 of the 5 that they put out there, the one on the police and military cases, that was maybe the best show I've ever seen regarding UFOs. And then there was another one, Dangerous Encounters, where people encountered them. Those 2 of the 5 I thought were excellent. So that's, that's Hollywood. I enjoyed doing it.
How long were you out there? Or did you have to go sporadically?
2 days. No. See, that's the difference, too. When Bill Burns said he got $6,500 an episode in season 3, he was there for a whole week.
Gotcha.
So they paid him $6,500 for a whole week.
Got it.
The 3 guys each. So they were spending $20,000 a week for those guys. I did 12 episodes in 2 days.
Wow.
Because all it was interviews like this, which is why
they pieced it together.
Yeah, it was 13 hours that day and 9 hours that day, and the ones they just put out recently, they then took the 20 and then rethemed them. And they pulled footage from a bunch of them saying these were all police encounters, these were all physical encounters. I thought it was great.
It's just it's Hollywood marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember distinctly, much to my wife's chagrin, because my fascination with this whole topic, being so jazzed when I saw the commercials for this show, because I was on top, and there wasn't a lot of high. Well, I don't have to tell you. My opinion as a consumer, as an enthusiast, is there's not a lot of high quality, well done, vetted shows with pragmatic and people in the know. A lot of it's just stuff that it looks like 2 guys in a college dorm room put it together on their computer.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, well, yes. And what I thought is the main selling point from it is that we had a case file for every episode.
Right.
And a lot of times you would see me open up the file and quote from it. So every episode was based, or every part of the episode, if you had 3 different storylines, everyone had a case file of a real investigation.
Got it.
And that's my complaint with the Ancient Alien TV series. I mean, I think Ancient Aliens is the absolute worst thing to hit the UFO field, which is why I created this hat. People see this and they say,
make ufology great again.
Yeah, and that's what it is. Make ufology great again.
Ufology, excuse me.
So it's not my MAGA hat, it's my Muga hat. Muga. So, but people see it as, I'm waiting for some.
That's a great hat.
I'm waiting for some Antifa guy.
Where do we get those?
Actually, MUFON, PA, we have them.
Okay.
I'm waiting for some Antifa guy to grab it. I say, hey, if you can read, please read that, and then give it back to me. I took kickboxing for 3 years, so
you don't grab the man's hat.
Yeah, you're going to give me my hat back,
one way or another.
Or I'll be on footage as the oldest guy knocking out an Antifa guy. But that's why I created the hat, was to make ufology great again.
Right.
Because I look at the Ancient Alien TV show and. It was good the first 3 seasons, and I remember the episode that they lost me.
Okay.
Da Vinci is an alien.
I must have missed that one.
Season 3, about halfway through season 3, they said, it's always an open-ended question. Could Da Vinci have been an alien?
Sure.
They don't ever say anything definite.
What's the other one they use? Ancient astronaut theorist.
Yeah.
Ancient astronaut theorist. Believe.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, though, I laugh and say, can I get a degree in that? And the one guy started Ancient Astronauts School.
Don't tell me it's the guy with the hair.
Yeah, no, not Giorgio with the spiked hair. The other guy who...
David?
Not David. He put the blonde streaks through his hair at one point. Oh, I can't think of his name right.
Real frail guy?
Younger guy, not bad looking. I'm thinking of an M for some reason for his last name.
Yeah, we'll get it. It'll come to me.
But he actually...
Martell?
Yeah, Jason Martell.
Jason Martell.
So I got the M right. See what happens when you're 63? But... he started Ancient Astronaut School, and Richard Dolan did that too. He created courses that somebody had put out there to learn online. Now, I would believe Dolan a lot more.
Yeah, he seems pretty credible, right? Your experience with him has been positive.
Yeah, he's a Rhodes Scholar and a very intelligent guy,
right.
But I'll tell you what happened too, and this is going to be great for your listeners.
Sure.
I did... the first Ancient Alien conference in 2012. It was in Minnesota.
Okay.
And the guy putting it together had reached out to me because I was doing the local Pennsylvania conferences.
Sure.
And he said, John, Scotty Roberts, he said, can you help me with this? I said, yeah, absolutely. So I gave him all pointers and what to do. So I was the only, maybe there was 2 speakers there that weren't part of the Ancient Alien cast.
Okay.
Everybody else was from the show. Giorgio, what a piece. You know, he should know who I am, right? Because I'm a multi-state director and on the board of MUFON.
Correct.
And I go up to him, I said, dude, I got to get your autograph and my kids will kill me, right? He goes, who are you? I said, John Ventre. He goes, who are you? I said, I'm here speaking at this event like you. Oh, never heard of you. That guy.
That is some arrogance, huh?
He was
That's a dick move,
He was Tom Cruise, you know, in a less muscular body.
Oh. Yeah. Meanwhile, if you did a deep dive on him, there really isn't a lot of substance there.
No.
He was a wrestling promoter and a couple other failed businesses, right?
Yeah, and get this. They promoted him as a bodybuilder.
Right.
And I say, wait a second. I didn't say it publicly, but I said to myself, I know a local guy here, Art Bedway, who runs a huge, had run before he retired, guard service. He is a judge at the Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilding.
Right.
And he told me, hey, one time he came up to me, he said, John, do you know this guy, Giorgio? I goes, yeah, I met him at that event. He goes, here, take his number. I said, no, thanks, I don't want it. He was a judge at the bodybuilding.
Yeah, that's what
all
I
he
read.
was. That's all he was. He wasn't a bodybuilder, but biggest ego you ever want to hear. But the highlight, the one thing that really stuck with me was Erich von Däniken. Mm-hmm. So it was actually 2 things. One was a little comical. You know, he came over from, I don't know where he lives, Switzerland, Austria, somewhere like that. He lives, or was born in one, lives in the other.
He wrote the book, right?
Yeah, he wrote those set of books.
The first one was the landmark one, though, that kind of touched off all of us.
And the second one he wrote in prison. Most people don't know that.
I did not know that.
He was in prison 3 years for embezzlement.
Did not know.
And while he was in prison, he wrote his second book, something of the gods, Gold of the Gods, something of the gods, whatever it was.
So is his big one the second book then?
I don't know. I mean, all his books are fairly big, you know. But so he comes over and he's got his manservant. So this is. It was almost comical.
It is comical.
You got this 30-year-old guy, you know, the sides of his head shaved, long hair put into like a Japanese thing with a piece of wood in it, and he was there to wait on Erich von Däniken. Whatever Erich wanted. Now, Erich, through the whole conference, must have drank 5 gallons of wine. So when we were up on the panel and everything, you know, Erich would drink his wine. As soon as it went down, if it was below half, this kid jumped up with the bottle and filled it.
You got to be kidding me.
It was so embarrassing.
You got to be kidding me. That's bizarre.
Yeah, so I called him the manservant.
It sounds like it apropos.
That's what he was, you know. But get this. So, and then we had like individual question and answers on one of the days.
Right.
So I got up and I wanted to ask him, Erich, where does creation and Jesus Christ fit into your theories? I got the name out of Jesus, right? And he went, boom. I mean, the whole table shook.
Really?
Yeah, he said, Jesus was not the Son of God. Jesus Christ was just a man. He was a prophet like Muhammad. And it was like the whole place. I'm talking, there were 500 people. This was a big conference. There were 500 people. All of a sudden it went silent. What? And then he realized what he said. History Channel was there filming it because they used segments in one of the Ancient Alien shows, which was all about Erich, right? So they took a break. So Erich, after the break, comes back in and he goes, let me just clarify what I said. I was a good altar boy my whole life. I believe in God. I'm not trying to create a new religion. You know what?
So some executive got to him in the break.
Told him. But you know what he has done? The ancient alien theorists is a new religion. And that's one of the reasons I very much disagree with that whole show. There's no credibility. And
did they run out of material after one season or two, and then they started regurgitating? Because some of the stuff later on, and I was fascinated the first 2 shows. As a matter of fact, the very to be very specific for a second, the very introduction to that show, before I think it was a show, was an actually 2-hour special.
Yeah.
I thought it was well done.
The first 2 seasons, even the third season, even though we got to Da Vinci was an alien. First 3 seasons, I actually bought the DVDs. I don't watch it after season 3.
Right.
But I remember the day when it came. When it had been on maybe 2 weeks or so, and Richard Lang, who is my publisher now, Lang Publications, he was the chief investigator for MUFON International, right? And he was with Homeland Security, great profile. And he calls me. He says, "John, are you watching this?" I said, "What?" And he goes, "Put on the History Channel right now." So I went over, I put it on. I said, "Wow, this is a great show." So I might have got into it in episode 2 or 3.
Okay.
But then I watched them all. But, to say, see this? Man could not have created this. This was created by extraterrestrials, because he can't pronounce extraterrestrial. It's extraterrestrials. And I use that in
He's become a character almost.
Oh,
now,
he's doing McDonald's commercials now.
Oh, I haven't seen
and
that.
Burger King.
Are
one
you
of
kidding
them.
me?
There he is. One of them, he's doing a Burger King commercial. So, huge ego. But the thing that bothers me is, see, I got, maybe we get into how I got started.
Well, so where was your first, do you remember when you were young, where your first interest or first fascination came from?
Well, probably my father, because, on the weekends we would sit and watch all of the black and white, horror movies, Frankenstein, Dracula. And then he'd tell me, he was born in 1930, but, to him, when those came out in 33, 31, whatever, I mean, you're probably a kid a few years later, and he'd tell me about the movies. And so I became a horror fan as early as I could speak.
Okay.
So I think I definitely got that from my father. But I was always a horror fan. I collected Famous Monsters of Filmland.
Okay.
The magazine, and I started that maybe at 11 years old, and I got a lot of the back issues. Forrest Ackerman, who was the editor, I met him a number of times, and I had no interest in UFOs.
Okay.
Zero.
Okay.
Zero. So what happened was I was my late 30s and working at UPS. They put me on an 18-month special assignment where I was traveling all around the country.
Okay.
I don't drink. I'm not a party. So it's like, it's getting boring. It's like, what do I do at night? And I always wanted to write a novel, the great American sci-fi novel, right? So I remember I was in Boynton Beach, Florida. And I had all these ideas, right? And I said, do I want to write it about, I was 96. And I said, do I want to talk about the millennium in 2000? I said, I don't think I can get the book done. So I said, let me do the Mayan calendar in 2012, because it gave me 12 years to get it done. I went down to the front office. I asked for a pad of paper. I went up and I started writing. And every week on this assignment, I wrote 80 pages, and then I conked out. It was like, I don't know what else to write about. And that's handwritten, which is maybe only 30 pages typed, I actually then paid a guy $1,000 to write 80 more pages for me. And once I got the technique and he showed me how to format and how to do conversation and all of that, then I took it. Now it's at 160 pages and I tripled it.
Right.
I got the knack. And I sat it for 5 years. And then I went back to it. So I started in 96 and I published it in 2007. But from that, it was end time prophecy. So I was looking at a lot of different cultures and religions, and they all seem to talk about people on flying shields, knowledge from star people. I said, and I was watching, X-Files when it came out in 91 and 92. I said, well, I need to look at the UFO field. So when I got my book done, put it out in 2007, I said, let me now, I had just joined MUFON I'm trying to think what year that was. No, I joined MUFON in 98, actually. 2 years after starting writing, I joined because of what I was reading in 98, but didn't get really heavy into MUFON until about 2006. They needed a state director, and I was, I had Westmoreland County and Fayette County, and they said, do you want to be state director because you're head of security at UPS for 3 states, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia. It was a great background. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. So that's where I got into the UFO field. But I would say until I was maybe, into my early 40s, I had almost no interest in UFOs, and I didn't know anything about the entire field.
Okay. You have 10 years on me, so we're in the same. I lump us in the same age bracket. It seemed to become a thing, like in the 70s. It became part of pop culture. I can remember just like the $6 million man having, and don't laugh, but it wasn't like the Flintstones had the little more. I'm sure the War of the Worlds started it all, right? But in the 70s, something happened. Yeah, pop culture grabbed it, right?
Yeah, I think it was Stanton Friedman when he resurrected Roswell, because Roswell was forgotten about for almost 30 years. I don't know the exact year that Stanton Friedman came across. He was looking into something, and somebody said, "You got to talk to this Jesse Marcel guy. Mm-hmm. He was there. He was the guy holding the tin foil.
He was alive at the time.
Yeah, and he was alive at the time. Right. And so he spoke to him and got a different story than what was originally said with the weather balloon, and Stanton Friedman resurrected the Roswell story, and I think that helped the UFO field. But still, at that point, I'm in college.
Sure.
I don't know anything about this. I didn't know anything about UFOs until like I said, the late 90s,
Okay.
20 years ago, I got educated.
Well, you definitely got educated, so let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, and I'll say, I think a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, before I retired from MUFON, I would have rated myself a top 10 person in the world on the history and the knowledge of these cases and everything. Okay. I would put myself right behind Stanton Friedman and Richard Dolan, seriously. Right. And even Dolan said on the show, he said, "You did an excellent job." And the History Channel said the same thing. They said, "We love you on this show," But I never got any more,
It was ironic that you're sitting here, because I had done a deep dive on you years ago, just out of my own fascination, before the show was even an idea. Where do we go? So, a person who has interest in ufology, I pronounced that correctly, naturally, there's a lot of healthy skepticism, and for many years, past decades, it wasn't something you'd bring up in dinner conversation because someone would label you. I'm not sure that's the case anymore. I think it's more mainstream now, and maybe television's helped with that.
Yeah.
But to me, in my lifetime, I never even knew what Roswell was until after the Bob Lazar story in '89. So can we start there to help kind of fill in my timeline? Because I remember where I was when I saw the darn thing on, I want to say it was Inside Edition. Yeah. It was '89 when it was for a couple of days after it hit the news in Vegas. It made the mainstream news.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you this first.
Sure.
I'm working at UPS. I'm an executive there, security and public affairs. Mm-hmm. My group meets with 22 congressmen and senators, and I ran that group for 3 states. So it's, I think it's November or so of 2000. Yeah, November of 2008.
Okay.
And I'm in my first TV show on Discovery Channel, UFOs Over Earth.
Okay.
And it was looking at 2 investigations in Bucks County that I was involved in. The woman with the metallic sprinkles and the guy that saw this gigantic 6-sided UFO that was picked up at the airport, right? So I'm in it. All of a sudden, my cell phone starts ringing. Other executives, right? John, is that you? Because I never told anybody I was a state director. I was doing I never mentioned that I worked.
Great.
So I came out of the closet in 2008 that, I do UFO investigations. And, it was kind of, I think they laughed behind my back and stuff. But today, I think, like you said, it's more accepted.
Sure.
Except when they want to slander you. Because I just ran for county commissioner in May, and so what the whisper campaign was, he's a UFO nut. He believes in aliens. He believes in little green men. And nobody ever asks you, and I can say so much of how I transitioned and things. But so I think it's more acceptable, but if they want to hurt your credibility, they'll throw that out.
It's still a risk to take a public stance like all of you have done in this field. But can you speak a little bit about where your thought process is and what your experience in investigating Bob Lazar, Area 51? What's your thoughts on that now, sitting here today?
It's funny. A couple of years ago, prior to, say, 2015-ish, I was the staunchest defender of everything in the UFO field. I wrote a book, The Case for UFOs, which I tried to get MUFON to actually use it as a manual for everyone, all the investigators to read, because it was the history of UFOs. And my thinking started to change. But I tell you what, though, there's so many of the old cases that today, I would say if somebody saw something, I'd say it's probably a military. It's our secret space program that Trump keeps referencing. We've had that since 1980. They just told him about it, which is why right away he has to take credit. He's Trump. I created the secret space program. But he didn't. It's been there for almost 40 years, So, I'm losing my train of thought.
Was Lazar, do you believe Lazar?
Well, I tell you what, though, he mentioned something on Umpendium, element 115.
Yes.
And, everybody laughed at him. Well, guess what? A couple of years later, they discovered it, and it's element 115 on Umpendium.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had a scientist tell me in conversation that, that was going to happen anyways, because the way they discover, quote unquote, discover new elements, they're in a series of numbers, and that was going to happen at some point. But he was
not
already
the same one that he named.
That was my comeback.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So but his story is so far out there, though, to the average person.
But what if it was our militaries that he saw? I'm telling you, since 1980, and I don't remember what year Lazar came out in the 90s,
89,
right? 89? Okay.
Yeah. But he was doing this stuff like in 87, 88, and 89.
Okay. And I don't discredit him because his education background didn't add up. He said he had all these degrees and he didn't. But I think a lot of people make up their degrees to get hired.
Probably.
So,
you don't buy into that conspiracy the government had that pulled or whatever.
That they stole it. They could have. I think Trump has proved you can't believe one thing that you're told right now,
Pretty much.
So, but so many of those cases were hard, the older cases. But here's the timeline I kind of created.
Okay.
Was that in fact, I was contacted by a producer. He wants to do a show on Hudson Valley, and that was 83 to, I think, 95, 7,000 sightings. He wanted to do 6 episodes. I said, I'm in. And he goes, oh, this is going to be great, aliens and UFO. I said, wait a second. I think this is a government project. And we kind of went back and forth on it. And I said, why did it, the delta shape, why does it have wings if it's from space? It's like, I said, this is ours. Absolutely, I think it's ours. And they're testing the reaction of the public, the media, all that. But take that timeline. That's early 80s, right? Lazar also comes out after that. So what if he did like Phoenix Lights, 97?
Right. That one fascinates me.
Yeah. Well, if that's ours, it's 500-600 feet in height, in size, right? The huge triangle. But let's say that they are, right? You have Gary McKinnon. There's 2 things. Gary McKinnon said he hacked into the Defense Department and he found...
Was he the foreigner? He was...
England.
Yeah,
from England.
Right.
And he found a U.S. Secret Space Force. And it had... I think it was 6 or 8 craft, 3 small ones, 3 very large ones, like 3 that were maybe 60 feet and 3 that were 300 feet, and space officers listed. So I think that's what we actually have, and that's why Trump just came out. And something else I gave to Hangar One that they didn't know about. In Reagan's diary, he wrote right before he died, he put a comment in there. He's so proud of our 300 space officers. That's in his diary.
300 space officers.
Yeah. Now, Space Shuttle, we had 8 with 6 people, I believe, in each. What's that, 48? Whatever it is, 40-something. Where's the 300?
Right.
But the 300 in Reagan's diary matched up to what Gary McKinnon said of 300. So I took that and I started to rethink the UFO field. And I said, okay, what if, because you hear a lot of stories with Roswell,
Sure.
It was a government craft, it was a balloon, it was all this stuff. I said, you know what, there was and you think about Nazi Germany, they had this stuff and they couldn't figure it out. But if you go back, there was a crash in the Black Forest in 1939.
Okay.
Okay, and the Nazis got that. Hitler got that. They didn't know what to do with it. You know, it's the size of this room. It's a disc. I don't know what the heck to do with it. But so let's say the crash in 39 was the only real UFO case.
Okay.
Or one of a handful, right? So they got that. We know for a fact the Nazis were working on jet engines, rockets, anti-gravity, the Glock, right? All of that. So we know that for a fact. So now we got that the books, and Kammler, who was mentioned one time at the Nuremberg trials, was in charge of all of that secret technology. He disappears right before the fall. Right? He loads up all of that stuff. He cut a deal with us. He flew over in that junket, which was like a 747 that they had back then. He gave us all their secret stuff. Right? So I mean, you could see how this flows. So now we got that in 45, right? Or maybe in 44 whenever Kammler left. So now we're working on a anti-gravity. So what if what crashed in Roswell was an experimental craft of ours? You know, and I don't know how to explain the people that were in there. You know, like Nick Redfern recently said they were progeria, you know, the people rapid aging. But, you know, if you look up progeria, there is actually 0 cases in the United States right now. And I looked it up a few years ago on a case I had in Uniontown, and at the time there were none in the state of Pennsylvania, and only like 3 people in the whole country. So the way I look at it, so then you get Roswell, right? Then you get something else that very few people know about, is the Collins Elite. Okay. The Collins Elite was the CIA came in 52 after the UFOs over D.C. They created 4 branches of the government. CIA was one of them. But the FBI was looking at Aleister Crowley, who came over from England.
Familiar with him.
And he was a demonologist, right? Worshipper, not just studier of demons. But if you look into that, in 1918, Aleister Crowley did a ritual, something of Babylon, and he conjured up an entity. It was a gray. It had small eyes, but it had the big almond head.
Okay.
It was a gray. So the first gray ever sketched was from a Satanist.
Got it.
And that's what he brought up. So the FBI takes a branch called the Collins Elite. They were like
Collins, like the word Collins Elite.
Coll. It was named after Collins, New York, for some reason. I don't remember the whole story why they named it after Collins or a guy up in upstate New York. But they create this to look at devil worship. They were, with sacrifices, missing children, and that type of stuff. So they're looking at Aleister Crowley and all of that. Then the FBI turns it over to the CIA in 52 when they're created. So the CIA is looking at that and the whole UFO field. Because some people will say the CIA was created because of the UFOs over D.C. So when you read about it, the CIA concluded there are no UFOs. It's all paranormal activity. It's all demonic activity. It's interdimensional. They're able to conjure. They take energy and they can conjure. They can make it the UFO, or they can put it in your head. And it's funny, all the years that I did investigations, people would say, yeah, I looked up, I'm with 5 people. The other 4 can't see it. And I'm saying right there, right.
See, I've read that too.
It's telepathic. They picked you out and it's telepathic. So there's this whole real demonic paranormal side of what UFOs could be, to explain all of that. So I don't know, maybe the only crash was actually in the Black Forest, and we got to technology, which then led to us back engineering it. Somewhere in the late 70s or so, we perfected that. And it's part of why we got a $23 trillion deficit. That money's being funneled to this.
They call it black budgets. Money just goes down the...
Yeah, I think we've already been to Mars. We have a secret space force of officers, and somebody said to me they're probably Air Force officers that have no siblings, you could find enough of them, or their parents have already passed away. So it's like you're a one-off. You got no relatives at this point.
Right. Well, to go to Mars now, they're I guess privately, these private companies are interviewing people that with no expectations of coming back.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something else that happened in 2012. I'm sitting watching the news. And it was December because, I'm all into the Mayan calendar, December 21st. And it was like middle of December. I'm watching the news. They show a 30-foot space shuttle landing on an aircraft carrier. Okay, I think it was the X-37. So they said it was in space for 3 years, a remote-controlled space shuttle.
So basically a big drone.
A drone. It was a 30-foot drone of the space shuttle. And who knows where it was or what it was doing, but it was remote controlled.
Right.
It went right over everybody's head. I saw that, and right away I'm putting it to my lectures and radio shows that we've been in space. Then I'll think a couple of years later, or Obama had just got in 08, right? Mm-hmm. I don't remember what year, but Obama canceled the space program, right? He says, I challenge NASA to go bigger and greater, right? But we already had it. We have the X-37. Look up X-37A and B, I think it is. One looks just like a delta-shaped UFO. Okay. So now when people are seeing that, I think that stuff is ours. And then you roll into Hudson Valley. Right. That's ours in the 80s, the mid-80s.
If take the Arizona Lights, for example, because the size that's being described is mind-numbing.
Yeah.
If that was ours, though, how could the powers that be think that was not going to be visible? Was it just a colossal mistake?
I think they do it on purpose. I think they want it to be seen. But, there were two different things that happened that night. You had the lights over that mountain that the people saw the lights. But like an hour earlier, you had that giant triangular craft.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, that one flew over, and people said it blotted
out the sky.
Blotted out the stars, and Governor Fife Symington saw it.
Right.
Now, just think about this scenario. He saw it, but then 2 or 3 days later, after they had made a big issue of it and 10,000 people reported it,
I remember.
He does the press conference.
With the alien head.
He brings his staffer out in an alien suit and makes fun of the whole thing. He lost the governor's election because of that. Because all those people said, you know what, we saw that and you're going to make fun of us. And you had the one woman, Frances Barton, whatever her name was a councilman, and she got kind of shunned out of the whole thing.
He did a mea culpa, though, right? He's on board now as a believer. Well, he doesn't know what happened.
10 years later, he came out and said, I saw it too. But what would have happened if that press conference was, I saw it too, and we want answers coming from the governor? But he covered it up. And I found out something else. That's why I said, I think I'm one of the more knowledgeable people in the field. In researching the UFO history, remember James Forrestal, Secretary of Defense?
Yes.
When
the Forrestal memo.
Yeah. Well, when he was taken to Bethesda to be, put away or whatever, the guy that drove him was, what's the governor's name now we were just talking about? Fife. Yeah. Okay. Symington, right? Well, Stuart Symington is Fife Symington's older cousin.
Wow.
Drove Forrestal to Bethesda.
That can't be a coincidence. That can't be.
So it's all in the family.
Yeah.
When you think about it. Yeah. So nobody has ever put that together, except I did. It's in my book, Case for UFOs.
Wow. Yeah, that's too much. That's too much of a coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, So I kind of look at the field and I say, you know what? Even if I want to be a skeptic and can explain away the modern day sightings. How do you explain away the cases in the 40s and the 50s? There were so many, and even the Hangar One show. I mean, there's that one that really got me. I didn't even know about it until we did the show. Right. That girl driving down the street, that was the Dangerous Encounters episode. Yes. She's driving down the street, and a force field is hitting her. Completely dents up her whole side of the car, and there's nothing there. Right. It's like some invisible craft was bumping her, and it was like, I don't know. But
what about Travis Walton?
I know Travis very well.
Do you? Yeah. I'd love to meet Travis.
I tell you, we've had him out here twice to speak.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I got him scheduled. We're going to bring him to Greensburg next year.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not scheduling the UFO conference this year because I ran for office.
Right.
I didn't want that,
No, I get it.
I said I don't
Absolutely.
want, but I'm doing it in Philly. I'm doing it. I got David Paulides with the missing people.
Yeah,
He's going to be in Philly, but Travis will be next year. Travis is an interesting guy.
So what's your gut reaction? After you know him, you've listened to it, you've probably read the story multiple times.
Yeah, it definitely happened to him. He passed 5 out of 6 polygraphs, and
Is the movie representative to his story?
No. And he even says that. He goes, half the stuff in the movie didn't happen.
Okay.
He goes, I didn't wake up naked in a phone booth. I didn't wake up with goo all over me. So he said there was so many things in that show that just this different didn't happen.
It's a fabulous story, though.
Yeah. But you know what? I was doing the Laughlin, Nevada conference back in 2011, I think it was. Based on the first book that I wrote, and Travis was one of the speakers. And I sat down with him. I said, Travis, in reading your story, don't you think that they actually helped you, not that they abducted you? And he goes, John, that is exactly what I'm thinking. He goes, that was an ambulance call. I got it wrong the whole time, saying they were hostile and abducted me. And now that is what he says in his lectures. He says that what happened was he was an idiot. He got out of the pickup truck and he went up to it. It hit him with a static charge because he got so close to it. Mm-hmm. It blew him 20 feet away, stopped his heart. So when his friends took off, what happened was the occupants took him, gave him CPR, whatever, and he came back to life, or he would have died there.
Okay.
It stopped his heart,
Okay.
So his view now was that was an ambulance call, not an abduction.
Wow.
But still, again, were they aliens or our secret space program? I don't know, because that was 75 or 73, somewhere 73 maybe. So he says aliens. He says aliens.
They were forestry. They were out there working in the forest, right? They were lumberjacks.
Right. Yeah. But then the skeptic was that he couldn't get the contract done. He wasn't going to be able to meet the contract, and his mother was a big UFO fan, reader of all that stuff, and that they used that as a cover to get him out of the contract.
They all would have had to keep the same story if that was true, right?
But I believe him. He passed polygraph after polygraph.
Fire in the Sky. If you haven't seen that movie, again, that's a Hollywood version of probably the reality, but you'll get a gist for what the story is.
Yeah, he's trying to get them to put out a new version showing it in a more positive light that it was an ambulance call. But he did say there were grays. He said there were grays, and he said there were officers there, big, muscular Nordics. He thought he was an American officer in uniform coming to help him and get him off the ship. And it turns out they gassed him. And then
so the whole, because that was a rather horrifying movie.
Yeah.
The whole thing where he was on the ship and in the green slime pods and then pulled up, that was all Hollywood?
Yeah, that was all Hollywood.
And does he remember being put down on the table and the examinations and all that?
No, he woke up on the table because they had just revived him. And when he woke up, he saw these, I think, 2 gray aliens there, short, 4 feet tall. He didn't know what the heck it was. He said he jumped. He did some boxing. He was pretty athletic.
Right.
He jumped off the table, the gurney. He's throwing things at him, and he ran down the hallway. And he said it was weird because the craft he saw hovering was 30, 40 feet, and yet the ship was gigantic. So he ran down a curved hallway into a bay, and all those little craft were there. So he must have been taken to a mothership or something, and that's where he ran into the blonde Nordic, male and female, but they were big and muscular, and he thought it was officers coming to save him. And they took him back and put him on the table and knocked him out,
And then he just remembers waking up
on the road. He was dropped off on the road, and he was dressed and everything, and trying to get back into town. So I believe him. He was taken, but you can make a case. Is it, so who are the grays? You have that paranormal version that this is all demonic, but you also, when I look at the UFO field, the crafts that show up, let's say they come from light years and other, galaxies. are those androids or are those the actual occupants of the planet? I don't think the people who build those and send them are in them. Just think about it. If we built something and we wanted to go look at Pluto and it's 20 years from now, we're going to put an android, AI, artificial intelligence.
They might be millions of years in front of us.
Yeah. Oh, well, they could be. Yeah. And so I'm thinking, what if the thing in it is not the actual civilization, but it's a robotic or half human, half alive?
Well, what do we, and that's always been my...
But we could be doing that too, and that's the gray. We created that genetic engineering.
So that gets into the very broad subject, because I'm also the least mathematical person you ever meet, my friend, but I'm fascinated by theoretical physics and the dimensions, and there's that theory that humans, the human race, in different parallel universes, or just this is us in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, it's far out there, and people can scorn you for even going that direction in your own mind, but that's an option.
Yeah. I think that since Hollywood, and even if it's the government, wants us to believe that it's life in space, then it's probably not life in space. Because if they're directing you in that direction, that's not what I believe, because they're over here.
Because they're all misdirection.
Yeah. If they want you to look here, it's going on over there, I guarantee you. But, and I've said this, I posted about a year and a half ago a $30,000 reward for blood, DNA, absolute proof. People claim they're hybrids. I've met a few.
Right.
They were really albino featured, gray, bloodshot eyes, light skin. So I put a $30,000 reward out there for something that I can take to a hospital, a lab, to show this is not human DNA. And it was no takers. It was actually a little comical as to the proof that I was receiving.
Well, and I think that's fascinating that you've evolved in your opinion, because there's always those attempts, at least on television, to prove that that's happened. Dr. Greer. He had an entity that was, once it was forensically determined, that was just a small child from. Yeah. I mean, there's always something, or implants that are being removed from the body.
He got mad at me.
Dr. Greer, do tell.
Everybody gets mad at me.
Stephen Greer, right?
Yeah, Stephen Greer.
What's his story, as far as you know?
Well, he's an emergency room doctor, so here you got a highly educated, credible person who's been with ambassadors and to other countries and stuff. But he's into more of this esoteric type thing. I mean, he claims that you can come out to his ranch or whatever in Virginia, pay a certain amount of money, sign a non-disclosure form, and they'll sit there and chant, and you'll see UFOs, and people say they see them.
Yeah, that's what he evolved into. Did he start out that far out in the beginning, though?
Probably not. I think he realized there could be some money in this. But he's a speaker at the MUFON Symposium in 2013 or so. Yeah, it was 11, 12, somewhere in there. And he's showing us the anaconda, mummy, whatever the heck he's got. Yeah. And I got up and I just made a comment. I wasn't trying to embarrass him. I said, it's just a shame that what you got, and you say it's a male, because it's the females that carry the mitochondrial DNA, and then you would know everything about both parents. You can't get that from guys. It only is in females. He got all annoyed. He goes, that's not true. I mean, he pretty much started yelling. And I say, look, it is true. You're a doctor. You should know that. And I'm only pointing it out. I'm not questioning.
I'm sure he didn't like that.
Yeah, I'm not questioning. But all I was saying was, if you could have got a female one, you would be able to prove everything. You can't prove anything with that. And then it turns out to be some, deformed baby. And it was nothing. You know. And other people, Jaime Maussan is famous for that.
Who's that? He's
the Mexican 60 Minutes guy of the paranormal.
Okay.
He was at a MUFON symposium, and the symposium was in San Jose, and it was a lot of people more speakers from around the world than from the U.S., and they were coming in with what happened in Brazil, what happened. Jaime Maussan puts this video up of flying witches. It was a Mylar balloon.
Flying witches?
Yeah, it was a witch on a broomstick flying along a rock face. But it was a balloon that was being blown by the wind. Say, flying witches, and they're real. That's why
can't make that up.
That's why I created this hat.
That's a great
Make
one.
ufology great again. I mean, I got into the field to write my second book, which at the time actually would have been my third book, because I ended up writing 12/21, 2012, a prophecy. And then I got asked the question, well, what are you going to do on 12/22? And I said, good, I'm going to write a book now, the day after 2012. So I wrote my second book, but it's just the stuff, and
Well, what about some famous cases, John? What about like Betty and Barney Hill? What's your thoughts on that story?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. They're all really good. And I know Kathy Martin very well. I mean, her and maybe Nick Redfern, I think her spoke the most at our 3 Pennsylvania conferences,
Right.
Erie, Pittsburgh, Philly, than anybody. And she absolutely contends that was a real abduction. All of that really happened. It may have, but could also have been a government experiment. Who knows? But I tell you this much, the Project Blue Book show, who did an episode on it,
yes.
boy, did they discredit Betty and Barney Hill. They made him to be this whacked out former military guy, and he was a postman is what he was. Remember, he went to the base and was holding them hostage with a gun. He never did any of that. I texted her, and I said, boy, did they make him look bad, because that was her aunt married Barney Hill.
Okay.
So that's the relationship there with Kathleen Martin. And she goes, yeah, that wasn't right. They really made him out to look crazy, and that wasn't the case at all.
One guy who has been like yourself, one of your contemporaries, is Nick Pope.
Yeah.
And Nick comes off as being rather believable and rather astute as well, because I think he held if the story is correct, on his resume he held a government job in Britain. Is that correct?
The Ministry of Defense with a C. Defense. That's how they do it. But it's funny. I wrote in my book, and I put in there when he came to Greensburg to speak 3 years ago. When I introduced him, I said, if you remember the X-Files and Mulder's desk in the basement, the X-Files was based on Nick Pope. Pope, that's who it was based on.
Right.
And it was.
Wow.
He got up and said, no, that's not. It is true.
Okay.
They based the character on him because he had his desk in the basement, and he was the UFO guy.
So it was kind of hidden from most of the other government employees what he was doing?
Maybe not. He was just looking like Blue Book. I mean, it was out in the public, but Blue Book had 5 or 6 people, was all of Project Blue Book. That's all it was.
Where's the Majestic 12 fit into that, or is that folklore?
Well, I spoke to Stanton Friedman about it, and Dr. Robert Wood, who is on the board of MUFON. They claim that they authenticated the documents and that it's real. And there is, I tell you, man, if the CIA is really making these storylines up, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty creative,
when you see how it all flows together, I don't know how you can make all of this up for years and years, and everything interrelates. I mean, they should be just doing movies.
Well, Stanton Friedman is a fascinating character to me too, because he, from what I can tell, he appears to be an extremely intelligent man.
Yeah.
Physics, mathematics, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And he is a believer.
Do you know he lived in Squirrel Hill?
I did not know he's from Pittsburgh.
No, he's not from, but he was working when he started working. He worked for Westinghouse as a nuclear engineer, and or physics, whatever. Yeah, nuclear engineer, and he lived in Squirrel Hill.
Did not
and
know
he
that.
spoke at St. Vincent's College. It was like the first lecture that they allowed in '79, I think it was, on the UFO field. So I have Stanton Friedman. He spoke twice here at Westmoreland Community College, and I brought him in. I tried to get him on I think it was like the 40th anniversary of his talking at St. Vincent's. I said, I'd like to bring him in. He spoke there, whatever year it was.
40 years.
Yeah, 79. It was the 35th anniversary, I think it was. And they said, no, it's against our theology. I said, wasn't against it in 79. Why is it? If anything, you should be more open-minded now. But that would have been so cool to have him back in there speaking at St. Vincent's.
And talking about what's happened since then.
Yeah, and they wouldn't allow it. But, he was good. But, he always stuck to the physics and the propulsion and can you do it? And I have moved into the interdimensional. I think this is all related to Earth. It happens. What the people see and experience is real. Right. I don't doubt them anymore. Some could be nuts, but or make it up. 10% are hoaxes from what I found doing investigations.
Okay.
But they experience this stuff, and this stuff really did happen to them. But in most cases, the thing has to kind of fizz out, or it disappears, or it leaves, and it gives you the impression that it's interdimensional.
Okay.
And what I was saying before about the, I put out a $30,000 reward, and when people ask me, I say, okay, where is the proof for life in space? There is none. You have some bacteria and viruses, and okay, you would expect to find that, especially if there's water. No one has ever found any proof in space. So I tell audiences, what you want your kid to do, go to college, be an astrobiologist. It's the study of nothing. You get paid big bucks, and you don't have to do anything because there's no life out. Nobody has found any life. I wish I would have been an astrobiologist.
All right, so let me ask you an off-the-wall question too, because we've brought this up on podcasts with people that are not in the field that you're in, just to get their take. What's your thoughts of NASA, and your thoughts on NASA and their integrity with information to the public?
Yeah, NASA is the public view. So NASA is
the public view.
Yeah, of UFOs. So they're the ones to make you think it's coming from space and all of this. I see NASA and the Air Force as the public propaganda view.
Okay.
The real work is being done by the NSA and the Navy.
Okay.
Okay, and some inside people have said it's the Navy that has always been involved in the UFO field, and they let you believe it was the Air Force. So I'm friends with Donna Hare, who worked at NASA, and she was one of the first ones. Her and another guy, Johnson, came out and said that NASA was airbrushing out a lot of stuff that they were seeing, and I'm good friends with her. And matter of fact, I keep asking her to come into town and speak at our conference.
Okay.
She goes, I don't really do lectures, but I mean, she was a whistleblower back 30 years ago, or whatever it was. But I think NASA, like a lot of things that we've seen now, is not true. I like we have the whole space shuttle program to me was fake.
Okay.
Because we know they had a drone space shuttle since 2010. So who knows what else they have? And I'm the only guy in Pittsburgh that was on the Anderson Cooper show. I don't know if that's a true statement or not.
Oh yeah.
2012, I was on the Anderson Cooper show, 45 minutes. This is a cool story, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but first, let me tell you, I'm waiting. I'm there to defend 3 women, 2 that were abducted, 1 that saw a UFO. The 2 were from Kentucky. The 1 was from Bucks County. I investigated her case. So I'm standing waiting. I'm all mic'd up. I don't know who's on for the first 12 minutes, but it's commercial break, and they're pushing me. You got to get in now, right? Out walks, I can't think of her name. The nanny. What's her name? From the show, the nanny.
Oh, Fran Drescher. Yeah.
I was in 3rd grade with Fran Drescher in Flushing, right? And it's like, I'm so stunned.
That's
she's
crazy.
gorgeous.
That's crazy.
She's gorgeous in person. But she comes walking out. I say, hi. I don't say anything else. I'll never meet her again. I was in 3rd grade with her. And I also knew she had an alien. Her and her husband separately had seen UFOs and everything.
Okay.
And I knew I was on the show to defend these 3 girls, and Joe Nickel from Skeptic magazine.
Okay.
Well, they didn't tell me he was going to be there. They said there would be a skeptic. So I said, I don't care who you bring in. On hindsight, I should have said, Fran, I was in 3rd grade with you. Do a about face, sit in the audience, and when it comes up that they're going to berate these 3 girls, you stand up and say, wait a second, I saw that too. You know the way she talks?
That would have made good television.
It would have been great. But, hindsight's 2020.
That would have made great television.
Yeah, I used to say, like, hindsight's 2020, and then I say something about 2012. The
Fair
book,
enough.
right?
Fair enough.
So we go in, and... so I'm defending these 3 girls.
Sure.
But one of the things, Anderson, he was fair to an extent, but he wouldn't believe anything that you couldn't prove. And, and he said to me, well, you think the government can keep secrets? And I said, yeah, we kept the Manhattan Project secret during World War II.
That's very true.
The stealth fighter is 1976 technology. We didn't show it until 88. The show I was on, Anderson Cooper, was before I saw the X-37B landing on the space. I didn't know we had a drone. So I gave him some examples, and he wouldn't believe it. The other thing they did, too, was they edited a lot of my answers out. It was really...
That's the worst. I didn't think that would go on.
The production guy, he wanted Joe Nickel. He didn't want Anderson to look bad because I gave good answers. And I actually was winning the argument. As a matter of fact, they laughed at Joe Nickel when he said, these girls saw Jupiter. And I said, Jupiter's like 6,000 times the size of Earth, and it's in the sky 50 feet from him. How can it be Jupiter? They laughed at him. They dubbed out the laughter.
Of course.
And then at one point I said, they cut out some of the stuff I said about the stealth fighter and that type of stuff. Yeah. But, I said, these three women deserve a lot of credit to come here and tell you what really happened. It takes a lot of guts to do that. And they gave a standing ovation. They cut that out.
Really?
Yeah, it was really a shame that it was a taped show.
Okay.
But they didn't want Anderson to be in a show saying, yeah, I believe in UFOs. And he never did say he did. He said, I want to see the proof. And I thought about that when I put the $30,000 reward out earlier last year. Where's the proof? So, I kind of now agree a little bit with him. After 22 years of doing this, the Tic Tac video and Tom DeLonge, okay, you claim you got a piece of a craft. You know what? I am so tired of all of the stories, and I love the stories, which is part of why I got into it. But I want to see the proof. I want to see, like I said, the blood, the DNA.
Right.
Show me a piece of metal that the properties don't add up to anything that we have. And, and it's still not there. So to me, I'm waiting for the proof at this point, but I love it.
What is the story with Tom DeLonge? Blink-182 was a band. It was somewhat on in the years I was in the guitar business, it was somewhat on my radar. And then he just quit his career to basically... Something I read said he was going to be the one who brings it to the forefront.
And that may be the truth. Now, it's interesting that he had previously wrote a novel, a sci-fi novel, where the aliens were demonic.
Okay.
Get that? Isn't that? And he has made statements that these people are heroes defending us against the devil.
Interesting.
So that part I agree with him because that's kind of part. The alien abduction to me is totally a demonic infestation. I believe that 100%.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with aliens. Now the craft that you see, that's a different deal. But Tom DeLonge kind of like, okay, it's almost like the CIA got together and said, okay, how do we break this to the public? Do we use 62-year-old John Ventre, almost 63, or 80-year-old Stanton Friedman?
Right.
Or do we get a guy in a rock band? Who are the millennials going to believe? It's the rock band guy, right? This is our guy,
Right.
So that's what. So they got him. Then they got some people from the government agencies there, and one is Chris Mellon. I had lunch with him before all of this broke, and he was telling me, and I again was asking him, how do you know it's not our space program? And he goes, I worked for the Department of Defense, and we don't have anything like that. And I said, well, maybe you just don't have a high enough clearance.
Maybe you don't know.
He didn't like that.
I'm sure he didn't.
He didn't like that because, I'm kind of...
on the very first episode of the Hangar 1, you talk about presidents in there.
That was
episode 1. And that's horrifying to me as a citizen, that something can be hid from the number one elected official, elected duly by the people of the country.
Yeah. Well,
they are not accessible. Then who is above that person?
Well, 2 points. One, a quick story is I was always friends with Congressman Tim Murphy because I ran the congressional stuff at UPS.
Sure.
So, and I had told him I was going to be in this TV show. So it's kind of cool. The night it airs, he texts me, John, what time? And she's in D.C.
That's cool.
What time and channel is your show on?
Very
I want to
cool.
watch it tonight. So I told him.
And that was
it was the presidents.
1.
And it was the presidents. So that was, to me, very cool that he took the time to even,
Sure.
But I kind of stayed friends with him over time. But the second point is, so you look at that and going back to your question, what is going on right now in politics? The deep state.
Right.
Presidents come and go. I never really looked at it that way. Okay, you're here 4 years or maybe 8 years. I'm a career assistant, Director Skinner. I'm a career person. I'm going to be here through 4 presidencies.
That's a good point. I never looked at it that way.
Oh, their egos.
It's career protection.
Yeah, it's career protection, and it's whatever their ideology is. And if you're hiding a UFO secret with MJ-12 and all the Collins Elite and all these other things over the years, look, I'm going to still be here. I'm 38 years old. I'm going to be here for 3 more presidents. who cares? And you see how they can undermine you and a lot of things going on. And they don't tell you. I'm convinced they didn't tell Trump about the secret space program until early this year, I think it was, that he started taking credit for it. It was really after 2 years. After 2 years, then they told him, and then he took credit for it, But I think it's real.
But if you're... This is what I don't understand. If you're president, and they all have egos, obviously, some a little greater than others, and you want to know something, like Bill Clinton said he tried to get the answers, and you're told no. I think maybe if that happened early in my presidency, I would blow it off. But as I sat there as the president doing the president's work in the third year and the fourth year, that would really piss me off.
Yeah.
You told me no. You? Who are you?
Well, maybe
I'm
what
the president of the United States.
Maybe what they actually told him was...
you don't want to know?
No, remember JFK?
Wow.
So if you push it
that's
too,
deep.
if you push it, well, who knows why he got killed,
Right,
But
right.
the only guy that really took it on was Truman. He grabbed the 9th Infantry out of, I think it was Colorado, and he said, I am going to send it to Area 51. Because the other thing people don't know, Area 51 is run by the CIA. It's not run by the Air Force. This Area 51 was created and belongs to the CIA.
Okay.
The CIA has their own space, has their own planes and spy, stuff that they do, planes and satellites and all of that. But Truman said, I'm sending the 9th Infantry to Area 51, and you're going to tell me what's in that building. And
way back then?
Yeah, back in whatever year
Truman's
he was
administration.
In there. Yeah, it was right before he left. Was it Truman and then Eisenhower?
I think
Eisenhower
so,
and then Truman?
I thought it was.
Yeah. So the CIA was created. Area 51 was created. And before he left, he said, I want to know what's in there. So they I can't remember who the person... 2 people he sent, they took him down, but they didn't open every door. They showed him, look, we're working on advanced propulsion and stuff like that. That's all we're doing. And then his presidency was over, and that was where we lost control of Area 51.
You think it was at the beginning of the black budgets then, would you think?
Yeah, and I think if you just think about this, let's say we did get that from Nazi Germany, or even if Roswell was real and we got that, well, how are we going to reverse engineer this thing? It's going to take millions and millions of dollars, and then became billions. And then we said, well, you know what? Eventually the Earth's going to get destroyed. We need to create a civilization on Mars or somewhere else. The only way to ensure that humanity continues is to put it on 2 planets, In fact, one of my books I wrote somewhere along the line there, Apophis 2029, about a real asteroid that's just going to miss Earth in 2029. It dips below our satellites and skims off. Well, I got it hitting,
Okay,
but,
of course.
But yeah, it's got to be a disaster novel, But I think that, but I've also read other books that say if you go underground deep enough, even if there's an asteroid strike, you could survive underground.
Right.
So you don't ever have to leave the planet. But
what do you think's in that mountain? What do you think is in Area 51? Can you describe to me what you think it looks like? How many levels? How big? Are there really underground railway systems secret underground that go to different cities? Well,
Lazar was the one who said that they started at Area 51, but then as it started to come out, because those pictures of the landing fields and the runways, that's all real. They moved it about 40 miles away to S4.
Okay.
That's where everything is really done.
Well, that's where Lazar said he was.
Yeah, and so everybody's looking here, and they're actually working, over there. I'm sure it's a giant underground. We have from Vegas. You have the plane flight. Janip, I think it's called.
Janus Airline.
Janus, flies there
every day.
And there's a bus that goes, if you're not afraid of flying, they have a bus and a plane that brings people to work and back every day. So it's definitely a real place.
Here's what I struggle with. To build such an incredibly detailed underground facility, the amount of workers that would have had to work on that have to be in the thousands.
Yeah.
It'd have to be. How have they been able to keep all thousands of those workers never revealing anything to anybody?
Because some people are actually patriotic. Well, think about this.
I would hope so.
The Greenbrier Hotel.
Okay.
Right, in West Virginia.
Okay.
They built that under the hotel for years, 20 years. It had gigantic metal bay doors that opened and a whole underground. This is where Congress and everybody was going to go, under the Greenbrier. So I tell you what, I put a theory out there that in Clarksburg, West Virginia, because I was security director for UPS for Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia. When one of the newspapers, the Washington Post, outed the Greenbrier, and they were really mad at them, saying, "You ruined it for us now. Right. Now everybody knows that's where we're going to go." Well, they're building the fingerprint center in Clarksburg, West Virginia. Now, think about it. I've been there. I've had meetings there because I would deal with the FBI in my work, and they invited us. We had staff meetings and lectures.
Sure.
But the place goes like 8 stories underground. They got all these like things on top and satellite, and all kinds of stuff. And this building exists to do to run all fingerprints. So, well, where do you do this? So they show us. They take us to the tour. A room like this had a couple of these standing rack computer things, and you see that we can run 10,000 fingerprints a minute. Right. So I'm saying to myself, it's 8 stories underground, and you're showing me one room. What else is going on here? The guy who was my investigator for that area said, John, when they were building that, he said, people there were telling me they're taking so much dirt out of there. Plus, there's a secret, well, not secret, but they built a road from Clarksburg Airport to the Fingerprint Center. It's the new site for Greenbrier underground to protect Congress and stuff. And I believe that's to be true. And I'm the only one in the world that has published that.
Right.
And he says, think about it too. The FBI is there, and the state police, I think, guard it with the FBI. So something happens, you run Congress and the Senate and the president, you know, what's it, a 15-minute flight to Clarksburg. They go in there, and you've got a 200-man military there between the state police and the FBI to protect you.
Right.
You know, so, but nobody else has ever said that that's the fallback. I'm the only one that has said that, and it's in my book, so it's copywritten.
That's it. That's it. But it's amazing that can get constructed because it's never spoken about.
Yeah, the locals know about it, but they don't say anything. They know that there were trucks and trucks taking dirt out, and that thing goes deep. It's probably got a nuclear reactor under there too. You know.
The thing about the presidents just drives me nuts because I would think that my guess, John, is that they're told that we do have things and to protect religion, to protect order in society, we're not going to. It's not in the best interest of society to reveal. Do you believe that? To reveal that stuff?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you another interesting story. Maybe I shouldn't tell the story.
Oh, please do.
There we go. I'm at dinner with my 2 cousins, right?
Okay.
They both went to the Air Force Academy in the 70s, right?
All right.
So, they were the more successful ones than me. So
you've done okay.
Yeah, I know.
I saw the car out front. You've done okay.
Yeah, actually, that's the cheaper of my 2 cars.
Nice.
But
nice.
So my one cousin is a 1-star general in the Air Force.
Okay.
My other cousin worked for the CIA. Right. So we're at dinner, and my one cousin's kind of laughing, telling his brother, "Oh, John's telling me about all the stuff with NASA and UFOs and space," and he's laughing loud, and he goes, "What do you think about that?" And my CIA cousin looks at him dead straight and says, "Yeah, I believe that." And you had to see my other cousin,
You gotta be kidding me.
His jaw dislodged.
Wow.
Down here. What? So, but he did. The Air Force cousin said to me, John, I'll tell you this. You don't ever have to worry about Russia or China. We got stuff that they don't, and you can sleep good at night. You wouldn't believe the stuff that we have. And I believe him with that. And that's why I think there's a secret space program. And I think we've had this stuff because we don't show it to you until we got something else, and that's really what goes on.
Didn't we, right before the war ended, to bridge on your prior point, we brought Nazi Germany's #1 rocket maker here, and wasn't he the founder, theoretically, of NASA?
Yeah, but he was the #2 guy. Okay. Russia got the #1 guy. Except he was older and not in good health, but he was the smarter of
Interesting.
We got von Braun. I don't remember the guy.
Braun, right.
But think about it. Who got into space?
Werner von Braun, right?
Yeah.
Werner von
Yeah, Werner von. Yeah. So who got into space first was the Sputnik, was Russia with that guy from Germany. But the problem was
they had their problems.
They only had him.
Got it.
we had von Braun and tons of the Nazis because we brought them and said, okay, you can go to Russia. It's really cold there. Or we
We'll put you in Florida, right?
or we can put you in like Arizona and Nevada. You become a citizen, you get a house, and you get a job, and we wipe your record clean.
Which, really is, I mean, when you revisit this history, of course, that really was an affront to the Jewish community in this country.
Yes.
It really, really was. And it just gets glossed over. But
it was a smart move, but, we've always continued those experiments that the Nazis did, and Unit 231, X-Files touched on it. In Japan, when they invaded China, had an area just as bad as Nazi Germany called Unit 231, where they did horrific experiments on the Chinese. And it's one of the reasons China hates Japan, and one day they're probably going to wipe them out because of that, and they've never apologized. But then you go look at the history of us, and it's like if you want to be in the CIA and that end of it, you got to not have a conscience. Everything is whatever will benefit, the country. But, we tested syphilis, on soldiers.
No question.
We sprayed them with stuff. We've done all these things, like the first A-bomb, and there you are standing there as the blast hits you.
Duck and cover was a duck and roll. So they're teaching kids to duck and roll.
When you watch the film, and a couple of those soldiers dropped down into the bunker, where they saw that thing and said, "Oh my God!" and it's coming at you. And the other guy stands there, and his mouth is fluttering because the blast hits. But we have a history of that where we continued those experiments. Even look at all the stuff. I look at it now and I say, really, Ebola, H1N1, HIV, all of these things because somebody turned over a rock in the rainforest. We disturbed the environment, or are they experiments that either got out, like man-made, like Lyme disease got out of Plum Island on Long Island, or are we testing them in Africa?
Boy, I'd like to think not, man. But I mean,
you know what? I think it is. I honestly think it is. I don't think that these things are just in the middle of the jungle, and because we cut some trees down and turned over some rocks, all of a sudden we got Ebola. I don't think so.
Yeah, there was correct me if I'm wrong on the name, but was it Montauk? Was there experiments done in New York and Montauk at the facility, which is pretty horrific? That's
a whole another story. It's funny too. I do. Fred Saluga, the West Virginia MUFON state director, and I created a YouTube channel that has 80 lectures on it that I produced, wrote, co-hosted.
What's the name of the channel?
It's Make Ufology Great Again.
Okay, Make Ufology Great Again on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, if you go to my website, johnventre.com, about halfway down it says free lectures, free conference lectures. If you hit that, one of them is on Montauk, and Montauk, that show that's on Netflix right now, Stranger Things, was based on.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was like one of the first people. I'm sitting there, my daughter's watching it, and I said, this here parallels the Montauk experiment.
Wow.
So I looked online, and there were a couple of people who said that. So then I did an episode and threw it out there.
Right.
This is from Stranger Things is based on the Montauk experiment.
Wow.
But that whole thing, I mean, it goes back to the Philadelphia experiment, and I think it was 43, where they were trying to cloak a destroyer.
I remember that.
And Tesla was involved. This was all real. Tesla pulls out once he realizes this is a military weapon. Although they were trying to create a ship that would not be seen by subs, because both, ships, cruise lines, everything was getting torpedoed by the Nazis. So that's what it was about. So whatever they did with the Philadelphia experiment, it goes from Philadelphia to Newport News, I think, and back. And, they say some of the soldiers got fused to the deck, some went crazy, some disappeared. There were a pair of brothers on the ship. When it went to Newport News, one jumps, or while it was going, something like that.
Wow.
Only one brother came back.
Wow.
The other brother, when he jumps, ends up on Long Island in Montauk Point.
So I didn't hear that.
The ship goes from Philadelphia to Virginia, comes back to Philadelphia. He jumps off at some point, and the one brother ends up. So he's the one then, I guess, out there. and they start doing these time travel with the
Right.
chair, and,
Right.
and he's involved in that. But again, one of the things that they did was some creature showed up, which was part of it, and they have it on video. There are pictures of it. It's almost like it's a black image, a really stocky, heavy, Bigfoot-looking thing that they said was kind of stalking them out there and showed up while they were doing those experiments.
Wow.
But they were time travel experiments, is what it was.
Do you think? So you think our government currently has time travel as part of what they're working on, or you think we figured that out? Do you think that's even possible?
Before I answer that, let me add one more thing.
Yeah.
The guy that brought the whole thing forward on the Philadelphia experiment, Allende, was from New Kensington.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Matter of
Local
fact, he was writing letters, and then he skipped town, and when they came to get him, it was in New Kensington, and he had already left. It was a farm or something. So he was
Wow.
local. But, the time travel thing, that's why I say, in one of my books, I think The Case for UFOs and The String Theory of the Unexplained, two of my books, I put 7, 8, 9 different possible explanations. One is from space, the other is interdimensional, another is time travel. So if we're it and there is no life in space, no intelligent life in space, then maybe what we're seeing are humans 1,000 years from now coming back in time. Think about environmental stuff, the movie Children of Men, you can't reproduce anymore, maybe environmentally, or even with the sun, radiation-wise. So now they look like the grays. Maybe it stunts their growth. They don't have hair anymore.
Sure.
Whatever. That could very well be us coming back from the future. Maybe all the abductions are to get genetic material to repopulate because we're dying. And I'll tell you something else that it's interesting. At the last book I did, I took a comparison. I looked at religion and compared it, and I also compared demonic possession to alien abduction. We could talk about that later.
Sure.
But one of the things were, I went to a conference, creation conference in Myrtle Beach last year.
Okay.
And he's talking about, Adam and Eve. And if you remember how long they lived, and every generation lived less, 1,600, 900, 600. And it was incest because there was...
Sure, certainly.
That's
It would
where,
have to be.
That's where the women came. So you have all these genetic defects, which is the reason why each generation, lived less and less. So, and I don't remember what the point I was going to make.
But the time travel in general, it's possible. I mean, I think theoretical physicists will tell you it's possible and
here's
how
my
it can
point.
be done. But is it really possible?
Yeah, sometimes it leaves my brain.
That's all right.
Yeah. But here's one of the statements they made to refute evolution was that they believe the human race, there is no life in space, and that humans only have an 8,000-year lifespan because of genetic mutations and deformities. So when they showed Adam and Eve and how each generation lived less, and it is a biological fact that every generation has more mutations, and as you age, you are constantly getting more. That's why you get cancer later, predominantly, and diseases later because of mutations. So their point was Adam and Eve, 4,000 BC, Jesus, 4,000 years later, our lifespan is basically 4,000 before and after Jesus. So we have 2,000 years left. And by the time you go out another 2,000 years, between the environment and our own mutations and genetic stuff, and
it kind of wipes out the species.
It wipes out the ability to reproduce, or you end up getting so few humans healthy.
That's an interesting theory.
I'm telling you, it made so much sense the way they presented it of creation. So my book of end time prophecy is, I should have said it in the year 4000, but I made another mistake in the one book, my first book. I did a second flood. And I wasn't very biblically versed, and it said in the Bible that God will never destroy the earth again by flood. When he destroys it, it'll be by fire. I didn't know that because I wasn't, I was like a really lapsed Catholic.
Sure.
So I needed to base it on a fire, either a super volcano. I'll tell you something about that. Yellowstone supervolcano. People ask me, well, have you ever Men in Black? Have you ever been harassed or anything? I say, no, not in the UFO field. But the first book I wrote on the end-time prophecy, well, the 3 books I wrote, which are novels, when I did radio shows like this, and I actually became famous talking about 2012.
Right.
That's what people knew me 10 years ago, was my novels on 2012. And 4 times when I brought up the Yellowstone supervolcano, 3 times we went off the air and had to dial back in.
It's interesting.
1 time the signal was taken down. We didn't go off the air. And then just recently, it was only 2 years ago, maybe, I'm on some guy's show, and it comes up in the conversation like this. We're talking about UFOs, and then I brought in the Yellowstone thing. I'm telling you, we're talking, and all of a sudden, there's a helicopter over my house. And he even said, John, what is that noise in the background? I said to him, there's a helicopter hovering over my house for like 5 minutes, and it's low. I mean, you could hear the thing above the house.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
But, and then the one guy, Kevin Smith, called me, and he was the one where the first time it was taken down. The second time he said, John, the signal went so low, I thought we were going to lose you again. Both times was when we started talking about the Yellowstone supervolcano.
Well, we're on DC power here, pal.
Yeah. Well,
I got it.
Yeah. Well, I put a generator in a Kohler.
Crazy.
I put a Kohler generator in my house from the gas line, and I'm kind of hoping the pumping station still works because it's the gas that makes it work.
Right.
Based on that, but that Yellowstone story is true. When Obama,
well, what is it about?
Well, what happened was, it's an interesting story. There's 7 supervolcanoes around the world.
Okay.
4,000 times stronger than Mount St. Helens. And when they go off, it's almost an extinction event. Okay, it is so big. The Yellowstone is 40 miles by 60 miles. It's the size of like Puerto Rico, all of a sudden exploding. And it blows with such force, it blows the ash into the upper stratosphere, covers the earth, I don't know, a week or 2. But the problem is not the loss of sunlight, is the ash is sulfuric, so when it comes down, it's acid rain. That's the problem. And when Yellowstone blows, it's Colorado, those adjoining states are under 8 feet of ash, like Pompeii, right? Destroys everything because it's like cement once it gets wet. And the ash will come all the way out to like Columbus, Ohio, let's say, is how much the ash goes. And you'll get it as a dusting, at that point. But it's a gigantic blast. But what happened was, and it's a really interesting story, these 5 guys from, I don't know, it was Harvard, Yale, they met at Yellowstone every 5 years for a fishing trip, hunting trip. And they went there. So one year they go there in like 2004. And they go, and the dock is there, and the water's not. The water's over there. The lake moved. And they're looking at it. The trees are like underwater and stuff. And they're saying, how is this possible? So they actually got the surveys, and they paid to redo them. And the lake moved. The ground,
how does a lake move?
The ground swelled up. And the water just rolled over to the side and created a new lake. But then it would go back down again. So that's when the government got involved, and they were always probably monitoring Yellowstone. And I don't even know. You go back 20 years, I don't even think they knew Yellowstone with Old Faithful. They didn't even know it was a supervolcano.
Wow.
So Obama gets into office, and like they just briefed Trump on the secret space program, they briefed him on Yellowstone. They actually, in 2008, when he got in, and I read it was actually 2006 that they got concerned, Yellowstone was having all kinds of tremors, like 20 a day.
That made the news for a while, didn't it?
But they cover it up. The blacktop, the road going in would just melt, and the ground would swell up and go back down and everything. So when Obama got in 2008, at some point they briefed him. And if you remember, that's when he had the government purchase 1.2 billion hollow tip shells.
Yeah.
He was arming the IRS. In his mind, everybody in the government was going to survive, all government employees, but they had 1.2 billion hollow tip shells.
Remember that.
They broke the America up into 8 internment camps. They were talking about every Walmart would be a place that they would bring people to.
Like almost like an end of days scenario.
That's exactly what it was. And they ordered millions of caskets, and there were places that all these caskets were stacked, like in the middle of nowhere. He never once told us what it was about. You know, he refused to say what it was about.
Yeah.
Well, it's just training for Homeland Security.
They never identified it as a fear coming out of Yellowstone.
No, and they will never. That tells you again, they will never tell you what it is. But people said, "Well, wait a minute, you don't train with expensive hollow tip shells." But they thought Yellowstone was going to blow. So when I was doing my lectures back around 2012, actually leading up 2010, 2011, 12, I was talking about it, and that's the only time my signal ever came down. Yellowstone's real. And, it's like...
Is it just we're on borrowed time, do you think?
Well, it blows every 600,000 years, and the last time it blew was 640,000, and it's active. And 3 of the 7 supervolcanoes are in the U.S. There's 2 right either in Nevada, California, or right on the Mexican border there. There's 2 more. Those aren't active, but Yellowstone is the one that's active right now. So, I mean, it's not a planet killer, but when it went off, there was the one in the Philippines that went off 72,000 years ago, which is also a reason why you can't believe a lot of the radiometric and carbon dating. When these things go off, it changes you can't.
I always wondered about that.
It doesn't work. But what they said is another interesting story. A biologist who was also an archaeologist, let's say, he was at a biology seminar, and they said 72,000 years ago, the human race got down to about 1,000 humans. Maybe it was Noah's Ark also, but but it got down to 1,000 humans and almost got wiped out. And they said, we really don't know why the genetic pool, and they know that from the mitochondrial DNA. We don't know why. And the guy raised his hand. He goes, wait a minute, I'm an archaeologist also. 72,000 years ago, I think it was Mount Tambora blew. It was a supervolcano, and that wiped out 95% of the life on the planet.
Wow.
So when that happens, and here it's interesting, FEMA in their brochure tells you you have to fend for yourself. We cannot feed you 300 million people. We can't do anything for you. Yeah. And they're going to save 50,000 people, who've already been designated. It's like those movies from the 50s where you got your number and you go.
Right.
But that's basically what's going to happen. And they will never, ever tell you bad news. And another place I found that I did so much research for my 8 books was the Pope before this Pope, right? He was the guy that the cardinal that investigated the 3 girls, Fatima. Yeah. He was the one who investigated the sighting of Mary and the 3 girls. And in his book on the Fatima revelation, whatever it might be, there's a paragraph in there where he says that responsibility comes with knowledge. You cannot tell the public the truth regarding millions of people dying in moments from an asteroid strike or tsunami or something that's going to happen. You can't just satisfy people's curiosity with the truth if there's nothing you can do about it, which is the cover up on whatever the 3rd secret of Fatima was. And it's the same thing with Yellowstone. They're never going to tell you. We're going to be sitting here doing this interview, and we're going to get hit by a 10-mile asteroid. They're going to be 5 miles underground. They
went there yesterday.
Special forces, nurses, doctors.
Yeah, I've kind of resigned to that fact myself.
The Clintons. They'll all be underground, and all of a sudden we're just going to say, "What was that?" And we're done.
What is this demonic experience you've had?
Yeah, this is all, it's kind of crazy evolution. Like I said, I had no interest in UFOs, and I got into the field by accident by wanting to write the great American novel. So I've always had paranormal experience. And I moved to Oklahoma. I was working in Europe. I was supposed to stay there for a huge promotion, be in charge of security for UPS for Europe.
Okay.
And my wife wouldn't go. We were going to live in Madrid 2 years, London 4 years, and then go to Atlanta as the head of security. It's a gigantic job, you know. And she wouldn't go. I turned it down.
Okay.
So my punishment, I was living on Long Island, was they transferred me to Oklahoma City.
Okay.
I thought it was a great place to live. I said, boy, if this is a punishment, punish me. It's like the woman who just went to prison for the college scam.
Yeah.
She's in there eating caviar.
Exactly.
So it's like,
for 30 days or 60 days?
I'm in Oklahoma. It's like warm.
Right.
The golf course around my house. Yeah. So I the second year in Oklahoma in 1990, my wife and I were watching America's Funniest Videos. And on the ceiling, 3 knocks, then 3 more louder, then 3 more. Boom, boom, boom. I thought there was a prowler in the house upstairs. I run upstairs. The kids are in bed, covers up to their neck. I said, what's that? A couple of weeks later, or a month later, whatever, I had a first bedroom, master bedroom. I'm going to bed from the living room. I pass the hallway, and there's an Indian chant in the hallway, a male voice that goes, ha, ha, like that. I also read in the local paper, the next subdivision over, there was an Indian burial ground, just like Poltergeist movie. The builder never disclosed that he just discarded the bones, and he kept building his thing, and they made a big issue of it that, he wasn't supposed to do that. So from there, I then get transferred to New Jersey. We moved to the New Jersey house, and if you ever, like a haunted house, it was a haunted house. We move in, and I remember my parents came over to see the house, and like we're standing in the den, and the door to the garage, you could hear the moving boxes sliding around the cement floor. My father's standing there. He says, what is that, John? I said, Dad, I don't know. The boxes slide around on their own. All kinds of paranormal activity starts, dark shadows. I'd have people over. They'd scream, John, get in here. You'd see a dark mist shadow just move across the living room ceiling. I'm telling you,
that's horrifying.
That's why I talk about demonology now a lot. My kids would go to bed. My son would hear a voice behind the headboard saying, I'm going to get you. My daughter would hear a baby crying and a rocking chair in the empty 5th bedroom that we had, and voices and stuff like that. And when I started reading the exorcism and demonology and all the ghost stories, every single thing that I read has happened to me and my kids over the past 20 years, Wow. So there's more that went on there, but then I moved here to Greensburg, and I no sooner move into the house. I get divorced too. My wife's personality does a 180. And I used to joke with people. I said, I don't know who I'm married to. Another thing that you read, the personality change, right? So we get divorced there. So now I'm working here. I got transferred. And I will say that I drove from here to New Jersey every other weekend for 7 years to see my kids, and I never missed. Wow. 610 miles every other weekend. But I moved to this house. I no sooner move in, and I'd wake up all night. There'd be a slow knocking in the hallway. I'd walk and I'd bang the wall, it would stop. I'd go to bed, it would start. As a matter of fact, I heard it last night in my bedroom. I heard it in the TV room. I was watching that new show, Evil, about exorcism and stuff. And I noticed sometimes when I watch the horror shows and stuff like that, there was a show on about the Antichrist. And I usually don't watch TV in bed, but I was watching it, and it was a TV series, and there was banging on both walls, bum, 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 like that, and I turned it off and it stopped. And I heard it again last night. I've had 2 priests come to my house. But what
do they say when they come?
Well, the first guy, was a Catholic priest that took 6 months when this started in it went from poltergeist activity over the years to demonic activity. On the 20th anniversary of my divorce. Think about that.
Okay.
Something showed up. I have a 110-pound Doberman. He heard it. He went ballistic. You can always trust the reaction of an animal. Something hit the wall. Boom! It was like a sonic boom in the TV room. I have Indian stuff, and that's why I think it started in Oklahoma with some Native American thing. The picture flipped up on the wall. I have 2 Indian headdresses, and the feathers blew to the side. Boom! I go upstairs. The hallway, there's a column of smell like a dead animal. You know, and right away I'm thinking, well, the dog did his business up here, but it was only in the one spot. And the dog, I remember he was like, he would sleep in the bedroom on a chair at the footboard. He looks down the hallway, trots down the hallway, looks up the attic stairs, and goes ballistic like he sees somebody. And I'm saying the most fierce growling, spinning around. And then I go to bed, and again, in the bathroom, boom, sonic boom. And the dog and I both looked both times, so I know he heard it, you know. But there were so many things, and then you'd have nothing for like 18 months, 2 years. But every couple of years, there was an incident that's not explainable. I just did a movie called The Exorcism Prayer. It gets released October 29th, and I got about a 5-minute part in it. And one of the things that happened in 2008, I'm divorced. My girlfriend moves in. My kids always came out for Thanksgiving. I'd get them, bring them out. The activity always happened predominantly when the kids were with me around Thanksgiving. And if you know anything about Halloween, it's not October. If you look up anything, October is the month that most kids disappear. Abductions, and they disappear for sacrifice. November 1st opens up the portal to demonic activity. Most hauntings and demonic activity take place in the month of December. It's how it works. So my kids were with me every Thanksgiving. So we have this one incident. We all go to bed, watch the football games, etc. We're in bed. It's about midnight. I hear somebody walking, pacing up and down the hallway. So I get up in the morning. I say to my son, you know, I figured he was like, you know, teenagers wanted to come up to the door as my girlfriend and I are sleeping, you know, for whatever. And, you know, so I asked him, what were you doing in the hallway? And had to see his face. Dad, he said, I thought that was you in the hallway walking up and down. Wow. Something was pacing. Then I go into the bathroom to brush my teeth. And on the mirror, I got pictures and I got video of this, and it's in the movie that just came out, The Exorcism Prayer. Okay. There's 2 arms crossed on the glass, and you see an imprint, but you only see the bone. It's not solid. You see the 2 bones. So it has 6 fingers. There was another finger here, and I measured it. It was 3 inches longer than my arm. So if you know anything, your length equals your height. Right. So 3, 6, 9, 12 puts it 7 feet. Right. 4 years later, I wake up at 5 in the morning, just suddenly wake up. I look, there's somebody standing down the hallway, and he's backlit right at that attic stairs again. And I'm saying it's almost like the attic light was on, and there's a guy standing there. But I'm looking at it, and I said, what the heck is this? The guy's 7 feet tall. His head's above the door frame at 6'8". Wow. He's got a square head. So I'm saying, is that a helmet? What is it? It almost looked like Gumby, like the shape, except the waist is tiny, like 12 inches, long arms and legs, like Slender Man. Yeah. He's standing there. I crawl to the foot of the bed. I'm looking at him, and I'm saying, well, this isn't a hallucination. He's still there. So I said to myself, step over the footboard. I was taking kickboxing. Step over the footboard and hit it as hard as you can, right? As soon as I thought that, a thought came in my head and said, you don't want to do that. That could be unsafe. You could fall. Step off the side of the bed and put the light on. I'm telling you, like in my head. I step off, put the light on, it's gone. So I walk down the hallway. My dog's sleeping at the top of the stairs. I walk past him and back. He never woke up. That's impossible. Dogs, you cannot walk past a dog without him waking. Right. But if you think about alien abduction, you know how the wife says the husband's asleep and she's being abducted? It was that type of thing. So back at that time, I said, is this an alien abduction thing? Because I've had 2 out-of-body experiences and other kind of paranormal stuff go on. But it progressed to the point in 2015. Well, my daughter got attacked. My son and his fiance were in one room. My daughter was in another room. I think that was 2013 for Thanksgiving. It's like 4 in the morning. My daughter bursts into my bedroom screaming, Dad, you're not going to believe what happened. You're not going to believe what happened. You got to hear. I said, all right, well, tell me. So she says, I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs to get a bottle of water. There was none in the kitchen, so I went down into the basement. She goes, Dad, I opened the refrigerator. There's somebody standing behind me, and it's breathing on me. And I said, what the heck is this? She goes upstairs. She's awake the whole time. This isn't that hypnagogia stuff, where you can't wake up and stuff. So she goes, Dad, I go to lay down, and something presses into me, and I'm frozen. I'm awake the whole time. She says it hurts, and the thing presses into my entire body. I can move my eyes. All I see is shadow people standing around me, and it pulls out. Then it happens again in her whole body, presses right into her. She goes, I hear all these voices in my head, like a crowded room, and everybody's talking. And she goes, I see a guy standing in the doorway, a shadow man. And he says, when you're done with her, I want to try out the other two, meaning my son and his fiance in the next room. And then it pulls out of her, and that's when she runs down the hallway, wakes me up. So we then tell my son and his fiance, she's sitting there on the bed. All of a sudden, she starts swaying, getting clammy and pale. And she goes, I don't feel good. She says, we got to get out of here. My son packs up their stuff. It's 5 a.m. They leave to go home to Virginia. He hits his GPS. It takes him to a cemetery.
Oh my gosh.
That happened again 2 years ago. I'm running the UFO conferences. We do the Philly conference. 3 of the speakers wanted a tour of Pennsylvania, so Jennifer Stein, who's a producer, takes them, kind of kills the week, comes to my house on, it was either Thursday or Friday before the Saturday event. She puts the address in her GPS, takes her to the cemetery around the corner, and she calls me and says, John, I'm at a cemetery. I said, well, you're actually right behind my house where I just put a headstone. So, I mean, that's the second time it took. But I've had so many weird things like that happen. And so I had the priest come in. Every time I have something done, it lasts a year or it lasts 6 months, and then they seem to come back. But I actually, in Thanksgiving, again, of 2015, my daughter, they're all married now. My daughter flies out, and she goes, Dad, I'm not staying at your house because of what happened. So she goes, I'm staying at my brother's house in Irwin. So I didn't know that. And I'm telling you, as soon as she made that decision, the activity in my house, banging on the walls, it turned on me. I think it was coming from my daughter is what it was.
Wow.
And she didn't stay at the house. I'm getting poked. Like there's a dry spot right here where it poked me twice in the forehead. It's like dead skin that's there, poking me in the leg. It was like the Exorcist movie, and the dog would hear it and go ballistic. Heavy scratching in the wall.
That would horrify me.
Oh, yeah. Initially it scared me, but it actually made me more angry that it targeted me. And I actually said a couple of times, show yourself. I'm going to hit you so hard, I'm going to send you back to hell. But you never antagonize these things. You actually want to ignore them, hoping they'll go away. It's like antagonizing a bear. You don't want to.
No, you do not.
But if you remember the Exorcism movie, remember the movement in the ceiling, the banging, the slide, all of that stuff from the movie was happening in my house. But it's a long story. I met a woman on a dating site, and I just happened to start telling her about it. And she goes, John, I'll be over your house. I had this happen to me when I was a student at Seton Hill. She was a Catholic school, and she had her own holy water and everything. She comes over, and she knows all of the prayers, St. Michael's, all of that.
Right.
Blesses the house. Boom, it stops.
Really?
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah, it worked. But then it came back again. And with this guy, this went on for 22 months. And one of the things that happened, which is unbelievable, I went to visit my daughter down in Wilmington, North Carolina. And on the way back, I said, you know what? I'm going to write a book on this. I'm going to call it The String Theory of the Unexplained. Because to me, the string theory was, if you call upon Jesus and believe in him, you can repel demons and aliens, which is a whole nother story. Joe Jordan wrote a book, 150 cases with a gray abduction, and a person called on Jesus and the gray backed away. Another reason I think the alien abduction is a demonic infestation. It's really, I could talk about this. I did 2 radio shows that were 4.5 hours.
I believe it.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So it's April of, I can't remember now, 16, I think, because it started June 6th of 14. So it's April 23rd of 16. I fly back from Myrtle Beach visiting my daughter. I said, I'm going to write a book on this. I'm going to tell everybody what's happened. I don't care about my reputation, you know. So I sit down in my office. I start typing. I look up. The yard burst into flames. I'd never seen anything like it. I had put blessed pendants on the four corners of my house in the basement and the four corners of the property at the fence line. On the other side of the fence line, it goes up in flames.
Was it the leaves burning? Was it the grass
The trees,
burning?
the leaves, everything. And it's moving against the wind. It's moving. And I'm looking, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And so I'm looking out the window. And I live next to a cemetery, of course, you know, but I have a stockade fence and it's heavily wooded right there. But I see three guys in the cemetery. I grabbed the phone. I called the police. I said, these guys just lit up my yard. They must have took lighter fluid because it's right along my fence line. Sure. It's not in my property. It's on the other side. And he said, no, they just called it in a minute before you. So the fire department comes from three different directions.
That is insane.
It was such a big fire. Wow. And it was so far from the pumps that some of them had to use the water in the truck.
Right.
So it's all done. I got pictures of it and everything, right? So I go back to writing my book. I get a phone call, and the mausoleum guy, he says, oh, how do you like your headstone? I had 6 months earlier ordered my headstone. It's 6 feet tall in the shape of the Holy Bible. It's really a cool headstone with some religious stuff, some other stuff, everything I've done, where I've lived, you know.
Right.
So he goes, how do you like your headstone? So what are you talking about? He goes, they delivered them today, this morning. I said, the three guys in the cemetery were putting my headstone in? He said, yeah. Now get this. I sit down to write the story. If you know anything about exorcism, they can burst things into flame. That's why they remove everything from a room other than the bed and an end table and a chair. They'll burst curtains, rugs, everything into flames. I sit down to write the story. The woods burst into flames the moment they put my religious 6 foot tall Holy Bible headstone in. It's shaped like the Bible. It has the lines for the pages on the sides, and it says on it Holy Bible on the binder. It says Bible, Holy Bible, or Bible. Just think about the coincidence of that. You know, I asked the fire department. They said, well, sometimes a piece of broken glass, the sun hits it, it lights the leaves. I said, dude, this thing is moving against the wind, never caught fire on my side of the property. And I didn't tell them I put blessed coins and stuff there, but it's really an amazing, and I wrote a book on it called The String Theory of the Unexplained, that if you want to repel alien abduction or demonic possession, you have to call upon Jesus, and it works. And I did a lot of research into that area. So it's really, I think it's an unbelievable story, but it's all true. Like Travis, I'll take a polygraph.
Fair enough. You have 5 books. Is that right?
Well, you know, it's 8, but I consider it 6.
Okay.
Because, like, I wrote that first book, the one that I just told you about, but I called it The Ufologist.
Right.
The Haunting of John Ventre.
Right.
And I don't think people know what a ufologist is. So I then, over the next 2 years with more experiences since 2016 and 2018, I republished it, doubled the content, giving them more information on exorcism and more that I learned, and retitled it The String Theory of the Unexplained. So that's really a rewrite, but it's a new book.
Got it.
And then I did that with one of the other books also. So it's really 6 books that turned into 8.
So what's on the horizon for you now? What's coming up for you besides the movie? You have the movie. When is that being released?
October 29th.
Okay.
And it's on Amazon Prime. And I was in the Kecksburg movie last month.
That's what I knew.
I was in the Kecksburg
me with no
movie.
notes, right?
Yeah. And I also have a third movie. This is cool. 3 movies in a year.
Right on.
I have a third movie coming out called Flatwoods, based on the Flatwoods crash in West Virginia in 52.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
Can you give me a brief?
Well, he's real slow in getting it done. He's actually, right now, the guy, Jamie Lockhart, who lives right here near you.
Okay.
he is working on a TV series. He's an editor and a cameraman.
Okay.
And he does all my filming and stuff for free, basically.
Wow.
But I donate money towards his movie, so it's
Fair
kind
enough.
of
Fair enough.
barter system.
What is the gist of the legend? It's Flatwoods?
Well, Flatwoods, yeah. And, it's funny. A lot of people, they know Mothman, right?
Uh-huh.
In Point Pleasant. But prior to Mothman was Flatwoods in Flatwoods, West Virginia. And this is, again, a whole new lore to UFOs.
Sure.
There are people who say we battled UFOs during
The Battle of L.A., right?
Well, yeah, all of that during World War II, the
Sure.
glowing orbs and stuff that. But Frank Fashino does some research during the Korean War, and he said we lost 83 planes in North Korea fighting. We lost 61 planes over the U.S. in training missions, where we lost both pilots. Neither one of them ejected. Neither. So what his theory was, and he did a lot of research, there was a battle with UFOs in 52, right after the UFOs over D.C. in July. In September, we're actually, the whole time the Korean War is going on, we're fighting UFOs, and we can't beat them. But we nick a few, we hit a few. One comes down and crashes into Flatwoods, West Virginia. And there's a group of, I think it's 9 teenagers that see it. So, it's getting dark now, and they go to say, what is that? Because the woods are glowing,
well, sure.
So as they get closer, this creature is in a hover pod coming towards them over the hill. Well, first the dog runs up, and then all of a sudden the dog goes running back past them, like running for his life. And these 12-year-olds, and I think up to 15, some of the girls, they come over the crest of the hill. There's a creature there in a hover pod. He's like 8 feet tall, green skin, orange face, 3 claws, and he's in a hover pod, and it stinks of sulfur,
okay.
And the kids actually get sick. Their eyes get all red. They run back home, and they're vomiting. It was one of the episodes in Project Blue Book that just aired,
Okay.
So that's basically the story to what happened in Flatwoods. And what this guy is doing, he's making a Flatwoods movie, but it's based on like the grandchildren of the witnesses.
That's cool.
So it's set today, but
cool.
It's set in the. So he's almost done with it. But so I'm in that movie. I'm in The Exorcist Prayer, which is about exorcism and the haunting in my house.
Right.
And
let's talk about the Kecksburg.
Yeah,
Before we wrap up, I want to talk about the Kecksburg because that's a very weighty, a very famous UFO story, period.
Yeah.
Did you debunk that, though?
Yeah, I did. I am the most, I tell people I'm the most interesting man alive, but I'm also the most controversial man alive. But
what's the story of Kecksburg?
Well, Kecksburg was December 9th of 1965.
Okay.
And you get over Canada, Detroit, Ohio, and into Kecksburg, something is coming down, like a meteor or something, space debris is coming down. It's picked up, it's interesting, it's picked up on radar in Canada, but not in the U.S. is the story. Come on, you tell me the Canadian Royal Air Force is better than the Air Force?
Right.
No.
Right.
So, but it veers to miss Pittsburgh. It veers, and that's how it ended up in Kecksburg.
Right.
So it's coming down, it's glowing green, and it seems to have 4 jets on it. It looks like a 4-pointed star. And it comes down and crashes in Kecksburg. And so then a couple of the locals, go into the woods to see what it is, but they're restricted then. The Army shows up, and they don't allow anybody in there. A couple of kids they snuck in there. But they see... what they claim was maybe 30 Army people, 3 Air Force officers, and then 4 guys in white suits carrying a big box. That was NASA.
Wow.
Okay. And the box was a lead box. So they went into the woods, and then they see blue arcing because they cut the thing open. Okay. So now the one story becomes it's an alien craft taking to Wright-Patterson, and some bricklayer dropping bricks off sees a 3-fingered lizard alien on a gurney, and he sees the bell hovering in a warehouse. if that's true, but it turns into the UFO story. So, and I kind of bought into it. It's rated like the number 5 UFO case in the world, let's say.
Let me ask you a question before I lose my train of thought. Is this part of the story of the German bell?
Yep.
It was almost. Is the time and the dimension the same, or is it many years prior?
No, it's 65, so it's 20 years after the Nazis working on it.
Someone got in the bell. And
so
then,
they're saying that, either it was time travel from 45 to 65, or we got the technology from, just like Roswell. We
Understood.
got and we are testing it. But I don't know if it's a time travel bell. Does it really have jets on it? And, would it be burnt on flames? I don't know.
Well, the whole thing was, not to deviate, but just to clarify, the bell was a round structure, right?
Well, it was more elongated but thick. Let's say the bell was 10 feet high and 6 feet wide.
Did they have how it was pictured on TV? There was connected with chains on this
to keep it
round,
from floating. Yeah,
and then some energy hit it. Then it just poof, it was gone.
Well, what they did was, and there's old German footage of it lifting off the ground. They took red mercury, and again, this is a unbelievable story. They took red mercury. They compressed it and spun it, and I used to remember the exact numbers, like 250,000 psi, and spin it 289 revolutions. I used to remember the numbers. But when they did that, it started to glow and emit radiation, and it would lift off the ground and hit the ceiling. So they put the chains on it, and that's that one place in Poland where they got that big cement round structure.
Right.
They think may have been to
that's
test
what I think
it
I see.
and do that there. And when they did that, the radiation boiled the blood of the scientists. The plants in the lab there, the chlorophyll got sucked out of it. They turned black and died. I mean, it's an unbelievable story, with the bell. So they're saying maybe it was the bell. Then they're saying Cosmos 96 from Russia got somehow knocked out of the sky and crashed into Canada, or maybe it crashed here. So an engineer contacts me in 2015. He goes, "I know what happened." I said, "Well, I'm going to critique you to the max before the head of MUFON in Pennsylvania says this ain't real."
Right.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, though, every theory he put out, I questioned him about this, that, what was seen. He explained the whole thing. I said, "So what's the glowing green?" He goes, "It was a copper alloy heat shield." So everything he told me, I looked up, or I had him send me actual stuff. We had GE Mark II reentry vehicles that were being launched out of Johnson Island after the U-2 spy incident. We started launching satellites over Russia to take pictures, and that's what we were doing for years. And he said, so I started looking at his documents. I go, "Well, look at this. On December 7th, there's one that's launched and immediately went an eighth of a mile offline from where it was supposed to go." Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, so 39 hours when you take the time difference to Kecksburg when it crashed from the launch.
Right.
And we found some like Pioneer launches that were like low Earth orbit or a little higher that came down days later. So I said, maybe the one from the 7th actually crashed on the 9th.
Right.
And that was his theory, not mine, but I found that fact in his notes.
Okay.
So he says, so I said, "Okay, what about the 4-pointed star?" He goes, "Well, it had 4 jets to navigate, and that one would go off to straighten it out."
Right.
I said, "Okay, so how did it bank and miss Pittsburgh?" It had remote control where it would shift its weight. And that's how they and I actually found in Air Force notes that they could get it within 100 yards of where they wanted it to crash. Yeah.
Okay.
And what it would do, it would shift its weight left or right and skim off the heavier low Earth atmosphere, and that would cause it to turn.
Okay.
So every single time I said, okay, so then it lands in the woods. What's the arcing? They cut it open. Why would they cut it open? He said those guys were wearing radiation suits because it had an atomic generator in it, which is what powered it. So he said they had to get the atomic parts out of it into the lead box, which is what they carried out of the woods, every point he made added up. But the one thing we were able to prove was that it was never investigated by Blue Book. Now get that. One of the most famous crashes in UFO history was never investigated by Blue Book. Okay, because they were in on it.
Yeah,
they knew what it was.
Okay.
It was a satellite, and they couldn't let the Russians know that we were spying on them after what happened with the U-2.
Right.
So that's, I tell you, at that point I said, you know what? Next, when we do the UFO conference in 16 or 15, whatever it was, we're going to allow you to present that. Of course, the UFO believers didn't buy into it. No. But I tell you what, we explained every single aspect of everything that happened. So at this point, I kind of think that it was probably a spy satellite is what it was.
Wow. How about that? Because that was a pretty famous story.
Yeah. And I've done 4 episodes on TV saying it's aliens.
Yeah, but you've changed your mind based upon new facts, right?
Yeah, and I don't know that anybody's ever going to present that version of it, But here's something very important that happened. The Tribune Review would not print our story in the living section or whatever entertainment section. They said it'll hurt the Kecksburg Fire Department's fundraiser. I said, let me get this. Truth fundraiser. Yeah. The Post-Gazette prints it because they don't care. They're in Pittsburgh. They don't care. They make it the front page of the living section on a Saturday or Sunday paper. The guy, Majors, was the reporter, takes it. He was a military guy. He puts it up on the Stars and Stripes military. They put it front page on their website, Kecksburg Solved, right? 6 months later, MUFON headquarters gets notified, and they forward the information to me. A guy up in Maine wants to talk to me. He knows who headed up the Kecksburg investigation. So now think about this. Unsolved Mysteries did an episode. All of it, they never knew the truth. We locate a guy who knows who the Army officer was that headed, and we got the name. We got all the information. But he said he was told it was a Russian satellite. Now, that doesn't mean they told him the truth, because they wouldn't say it was an American one. So they said it's the Cosmos 96. And he stuck to his story that it was Cosmos 96, but I think it was ours. Wow. So it was cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
This has been great, pal.
Absolutely.
You come back and see me again,
Absolutely.
Right? For sure.
And I can fill you in on exorcism. I've actually gone more into the haunted demonology side of things, but it's an unbelievable area that's totally true. But I still love the UFO stuff because I love a good story.
Well, that's what we connected on too.
And I'm waiting for the real proof until they show up and we can meet them and see. I'm not buying that there's life in space. This is interdimensional, And
how they reach you? Obviously, your website, right?
Yeah, just John Ventre. It's actually johnventre.blogspot.com.
Okay.
If you look me up on YouTube, there's 100 lectures and videos.
There's plenty of information on this guy.
But on my website, in the middle, is my actual YouTube site. It says free lectures, and there's 80 of them there. I actually filmed a pilot with a production company from Pittsburgh. Frequency was the name of it. The producer let me put the whole first episode up.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Frequency. You'll love this.
Okay.
It's a 5-girl rock band that tours the country.
Okay.
And when they're in cities, they check the newspaper and stuff for paranormal stuff and investigate it. So when they contacted me, I interviewed with them in Pittsburgh at the whatever that. Where they make movies, the producers, whatever's in there in Pittsburgh. I think they shut it down last year.
Pittsburgh Film Institute.
Yeah, that's what a film
Commission.
Institute. Yeah. So and then I gave them the idea. Okay, I see where you're headed with this. So where I fit in, I look at UFOs and demonology, and my friend Fred Sluker of West Virginia, MUFON, looks at Bigfoot and UFOs. I said, here's your angle. Put this in the movie, Charlie's Angels. You're out on the road and you call me and Fred and you ask, this is what we're encountering, and I'm Charlie, and I tell you. So then they come out to my house, and I got the coolest house you ever want to see. Every room is themed. Right. And I talk to them there and tell them some stories, and they said, we found our Charlie. So this would have been really cool. Wow. This girl rock band traveling, and looking into the paranormal, but it didn't get picked up. Actually, the guy who produced it suffered a stroke. And he's not that old. He's probably
Right.
45 or so.
Right.
He had a stroke, and he can't talk right now.
Wow.
So he's going through some stuff. And I said, well, let me put it up at least, and maybe somebody will look at
Absolutely.
and say, oh, that's a good
Someone can
concept.
see it, right?
And then they'll
Called
do
Frequency.
it. Frequency with an I.
Check that out.
Because
as
there
well.
was a TV series that came out, Frequency with a Y.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And I think that was the one with the remember the box and the fireman where he would listen and he heard his father back in time.
That's right.
Yeah, but this is a different concept. So, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I tried to run for county commissioner, the TV. I tried to sell 3 of my books to one of the TV channels. I don't want to tell you. And I gave them 2 what they call treatments,
Right.
where you write up a show,
Sure.
2 different types. And I thought they're great ideas based on 3 of my books.
Right.
2 months I negotiated, and then they came, we're not sure about this. We're going to stick with
Tough business, man.
yeah, Paranormal 911. So, oh well.
Thank you, buddy.
You're
Head back
welcome.
Again, and thank you all so much.
Yeah,
John Ventre.
I enjoyed it.
All right.
There we go.
That
How
was
long did we talk?
tremendous.
Yeah.